This land is your land. This land is my land.
The world is changing, that's right. And one of the reasons that we advocate and work so hard for political reforms that open up the political process is that we want to give voters and we want to give communities the opportunity to do something different, to use their power, to use their vote, to create different kinds of outcomes, to upset the apple cart, to change the game, and to make it the case politicians and the parties can no longer rely on the conventional wisdom to determine how they run elections, how they govern, and how they represent the people of this country. That has got to change. And we talked about the importance of modernizing the electoral system, and I want to ask all of you a question about, this is maybe a question about modernizing not just political machinery or the design of elections, but maybe this has to do with modernizing or post-modernizing, for some people, certain concepts that are at the core of what we're doing. And I'm thinking about the issue of choice. That is not just having the right to vote and being able to exercise that vote, but having meaningful choices along the way. Now, the question of choice, in my opinion, gets reduced to kind of a set of low-level, well, we just need to have more candidates on the ballot, or we need to have or whatever. Not to make an argument against having a whole bunch of candidates. I've always been in favor of that, and I think that's actually one of the strengths of the top two open primary systems. It puts everybody out there, lets all the voters address that and choose the two finalists. But maybe this is a philosophical question more than anything else. What is choice?
You have 435 districts in Congress today. 400 of them arguably are not competitive, meaning the decision is made in 400 of the 435 in the primary where the majority of voters have no choice whatsoever when you get to the general election. This is about giving more voters a choice in the system. And today, it has become effectively a tyrannical system. It's a system where a small group of interests can go control whoever the majority party is, and by controlling the majority party, they alleviate the choice that the rest of us have in a general election. A large segment of the population is giving up on the two parties. They are re-registering as independents through no organized effort whatsoever. They've become disgusted with what they see that's happening politically. They're disconnecting and disassociating with them. The reason that they should be concerned about architectural reform or structural reform is because as those voices leave the parties, we're leaving a more distilled ideological base inside of both of them that now is increasingly insisting on not compromising with the other side. That's having an effect on us congressionally, legislatively, throughout our states, and our ability to get people who have different points of views to sit down and work together for the common good. The whole concept of e pluribus unum, out of the many one, it's evading us. We're losing it.
Yes. I think in that respect that you want people to, I guess, learn that they have some choices. And so it just makes me think of Harriet Tubman. I mean, Harriet Tubman said, I could have freed 1,000 more slaves had they known that they were slaves. Well, you could say the same thing about all of these voters who are locked out in different ways, who are refusing to join any party because they feel like it's not a choice. We have to somehow convert that to say, you know what? There's an underground railroad that can take you to the homeland, and we've got to build that and make it happen. The American people have to care about political reform because we are being locked out, left out, killed, denied, and given nothing. And when government is defined as two parties, then you have to begin to look at the structural issue there and say, what is happening and how come people are not allowed to participate. And I think that we have to figure out that there is a way for you to participate, and we're going to show you how.
I'm trying to address at least what I see as the philosophical side of this choice question. I mean, in my mind at least, the problem with choice, and Americans have lots of choices. You go to the supermarket, you can have 37 different kinds of cereal, 14 kinds of yogurt, probably more. And the problem with choice, as we have been led to understand it, is that choice relates to the American people as consumers. And the political process surely does that with the consultants, with the ads, with the primaries. But Americans rarely have the opportunity and have been disorganized from the choice or the creative activity of what kind of a political process do we want? What kind of a society do we want? What does our democracy need to be in 2015? What happened to the promise of the Obama election? So maybe we have to revisit the issue of choice and transform choice or change choice into the activity of people working to create something new together. So for the past 20 years, the parties have engaged in an assault on states that have open primaries, have convinced the court that they're private associations and therefore should have the right to prevent people that haven't signed on the dotted line to join them to participate in primary elections. Independents and our lawsuit says, well, if they're private associations, why is it that the state is funding and paying for their primaries? Secondly, there's this fascinating case that was argued in the Supreme Court coming out of Arizona. Arizona state legislature sued a redistricting commission that had been established by initiative and referendum to remedy the horrendous gerrymandering that takes place in Arizona and elsewhere. The state legislature sued the commission. The Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, and the state legislature took the position that the Constitution says that only the legislature can decide matters pertaining to congressional elections, not the people. So what ties this together, hopefully, and that people will begin to see that this is a matter of sovereignty. If the people don't govern, if that's not the source of power, if the legislature can say measures and reforms and issues that go directly to the people can be nullified by the courts or by the legislature, then the very fundamentals of democracy are called into question.
We just had a national election in the midst of, times where we have a lot of problems on the table. About 36% of eligible voters felt their vote was worth casting and went out and did it. 64% did not. Of course, a lot of people weren't registered in the first place. That's a whole other problem. But that was the lowest turnout we'd had in a midterm election since 1942. In the primary elections, open primaries, closed primaries alike, we had the lowest ever turnout in more than half of our states. So in that sense, the sense of choice being something that people feel there's a meaningful reason to participate. There's something meaningful for what they're doing. The choice they make matters to them and matters to their lives. And so it's not just a matter of having a mix of candidates, though I think that is essential to what we need to put as part of the mechanism of our reform. But it also means that they have to believe it matters. So choice has to have meaning for impact. But I'll sort of use as an example of like what I think is meaningful choice is that the state of Maine, I know there's some people from Maine here, next year we'll vote on whether to have ranked choice voting in the November election. They've had a whole series of elections for governor where they have choice in the sense they have more than 2 people running. And actually of their last 11 races for governor, only 2 were won with more than half the votes. And so there's been enough of a strong third-party independent movement there that, in fact, with different rules, they would have had more winners. But they had Angus King, of course, won as governor and then later as senator. But that has put stress on a system where they can only vote for one. So a movement has come together to put ranked choice voting on the ballot where people will be able to say, here's my first choice, but here's my second choice. And so if my first choice is a weak candidate and finishes last, my ballot gets to go to my second choice. And so I have more choices, and the candidates have more incentives to talk to more people because they not only need your first choice, they need your second choice. With that little statutory change, a mechanistic change, we've kind of expanded the opportunities for voters to consider different choices, and for the candidates, created this whole new incentive where they have to treat everyone as a swing voter because everyone can have a first or second choice. So sort of showing how the mechanisms can connect to meaning and connect to choices.
If I can explain where I'm coming from a successful effort in California, I think we changed it with a fundamentally different approach. What people didn't understand is that in California, we started months, if not more than a year before the election, doing nothing other than voter education. And what this is, it's not a campaign, and it's not about us. It's about the way we elect our representatives. And if you put it in the historical context, we had direct primaries to get the selection process out of the back room. And so where we've gotten today, we've gotten to a process where we had 10% political participation across the country. We have 50% of people who don't feel represented by either party. But the first stage of our process is one conducted not for the purpose of electing representatives for all of us. The stated purpose in the laws is to elect somebody who best represents those political parties who were. You don't have to run a poll. You don't have to go talk to people. You just walk into a restaurant. Everybody recognizes it. The parties are not serving us. This isn't about independent voters. It's about all of us, and it's about having a system that represents every individual voter. That's not members of the Democrat Party. It's not members of the Republican Party. It's not independents. It's everybody. And the right to vote derives from the citizenship, not from joining a political party. And it's that principle that we should be promoting.
We've talked about this many times. George Washington, as he's leaving office, warning the country, don't let there be official connectors. Stay connected yourself. Don't let there be parties. And about 4.5 hours after his speech made its way around the country, the parties, were embedded, and we had the most partisan election ever in 1800. And I guess part of what I think about is the importance of recognizing how our very understanding of connecting has been so shaped by the parties. It's been so overdetermined by how the Democrats connect people and how the Republicans connect people. And they do it in this very sophisticated, slick way that plays off mutual benefits but also antagonisms. And it's very pernicious. And so part of what I'm personally very excited about this movement, this conference, is the opportunity to connect in ways that don't mean we have to fit together perfectly, or we have to smooth over things or end any kind of disagreements. I love connecting in ways that don't resolve our disagreements, but use them creatively. I think that's so important, and that's what this movement is doing.
For you and me.